everybody, my name is Joey Balistreri. I'm the girl with the long Italian last name, and today I'm going to be doing a really cool bracelet, highly textural and a little bit eclectic, and I'm going to be using some beautiful supplies from Jesse James Beads. So the little dish here is one of their wonderful mixes. It's called Adventure Awaits. So I've just dumped everything in the dish, and then I'm also going to be using these gorgeous agate allure stone beads. This was a long strand. It's called Magic Emporium Blue, and I'll just put a few here. Look at all the color variation in this. It's absolutely a stunning. I don't want to put them down. They have like a beautiful weight and this amazing geometry in this, cylinder-like bead. I'm just absolutely wonderful. So those are going to go in my bracelet, and in this little pot I just have a lobster claw clasp and some jump rings, and then these are also from the Fab Finds area of the Jesse James Bead website. It's called the Square Bead Pair, and this is in Red Snake. There are some other colorways in this as well. So if you peruse the Jesse James Beads website, go to that section called Fab Finds, because there are some really cool things there. And again, I wish we had Feel-O-Vision, because these have such a gorgeous weight to them, and they're textural, and look at the dimension of the bead. It's just really cool. And then these are also from the Jesse James Beads website. These are 3-hole crystal disc spacers, so they're similar to the crystal rondelle spacers that you see in a lot of their mixes. And then what I have here is left over from the Magical Mystery Bead Box called In the Conservatory. And these are little disc, really cool. Like, it was part of the metal mix, but there are a lot of connection points. So if you didn't use these and you get the Magical Mystery Bead Box, you can use these in the project, or you can use this type. But what we need for this bracelet is a 2-hole kind of spacer bead, and I am thinking that I might even use both in my project, but I wanted to give you some options. I'm also going to be stringing on some blue lapis, some dark blue bead stringing wire. It's 49 strand, but you can really string on anything. You're not going to see this too much. And then off to the side here, I have a little tray of seed beads, and these are literally from my stash, just some 8/0 seed beads in colors that match. I'll pull this up to the camera, in colors that match my bead mix. And so cool, this seed bead here, I don't know what it is, I can't even tell you the color, but it's left over from last summer's summer camp event. That is all that I had left, and it just works beautifully back to like the little tassels in the mix. So I'm going to try to use those up. And then this is a single number 2 crimp tube. You only need 1 crimp for this bracelet project and 1 lobster claw clasp. It's really cool. So I'm going to start with I did not measure this, but it's a bracelet length doubled. So I would say start with about 16 inches, just so you're not working with short tails. And I'm going to get some, let me set my jump rings and lobster claw clasp aside, because I won't need those until the end. And this is like a really just simple, fun stringing project, you guys. So the way I want to start out is just doing a pattern of seed beads that are going to string right down to the middle. And the point of this is I need my lobster claw clasp at the end. Let me just bring it back in. When I'm all done stringing, my lobster claw clasp is going to hook over this section of the bracelet. So this is like the round end of the toggle, if you will, although it's not a toggle. So I'm just going to have fun here creating a little pattern for the, the loop part of my bracelet. And when I get this strung, I'll show you, but you can really do this very creatively. Like, you could really make this part of the bracelet any length that you want. So let me just string some beads, and then I'll show you what I came up with. Okay, so that's my little pattern, and this is, small enough that when I put my lobster claw on the other end, it will be able to clasp right here. It's a little hard to open it when it's not, but it'll be able to clasp right there. And so now I'm going to start playing in my bead mix. So we're only going to be using 2 holes of the 3-hole spacer. So I chose a bead from the mix that has a little bit of a fat bottom, and then when I bring my spacer bead down it kind of fills in that empty space, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. And so what I was saying about being creative here is that if you want this negative space to be a lot more, you can keep stringing and, you know, make it a lot more. But for me, I just did, whoops, and I see that I missed a gold bead right here. I'm so glad I'm talking to you guys and I caught that. Okay, that's better. So that looks really great. That is just a wonderful closure. And what I love about this design is that as I get going all the way around, this bracelet is going to be, you know, unusual and eclectic. And no matter which way it spins on my wrist, I'll be able to see something cool. So I'm going to keep stringing. Let me even out my strands a little bit again. And I'm going to keep stringing, and I will be coming back to these seed beads. I'm going to set them aside, but I will be coming back to them and, you know, adding them into my strands. And so again, I want to kind of cover up that I'm not using the middle hole on this spacer bead. So I'm going to play in this bead mix. I'm going to take these out and take out this focal bead that's in the bead mix. Isn't that the most gorgeous boho bead? I love that. So let me see what I want to do on this side. Let me go into a blue bead. Okay, so I'm going to just have fun stringing like that. I'm going to save my third crystal for the end, and I'm going to play with my stringing. I may string these guys on as well. This is like really fun stringing. And I'm just going to alternate the blue and the gold and, you know, the kind of this golden pale pumpkin color, and just alternate all these colors. I do want to get an agate bead in here pretty soon, and I'm going to just see how that looks. Oh, wow. Look at that. So gorgeous. And so you can just like have fun alternating. It's kind of a funky double strand bracelet, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to continue to play here with my stringing, and I'm just going to keep going, and I'll pop back in and show you what I decide as I go along the length of the bracelet. And the cool thing is you can also draw these together if you want to, and I don't know if I will. I'm going to play with my bead mixes here and see if that's what I want to do. Okay, so I did decide to draw both my strands together to go through my beautiful metal square bead. And if you're doing that, in order to make your two parallel lines come together and then spread out, seed beads, a section of seed beads really helps so that the beads are not competing for space as they come out of the bead where you've doubled it. And also these little copper spacers have a little bit larger hole, so it just makes it so that, if you can see here, it's not competing for space as my two strands come together and then as they exit that bead. So now I'm going to resume back to my individual strands, and I'm going to grab let me choose, each one of these beautiful agate beads is a little bit different, so I'm going to choose one that's got some cool colors in it. And, you know, I'm just having fun. Like, I put it on the opposite strand of the first one that I added in, and I'm just going to have fun stringing, just continue like that. Okay, I am ready to finish up my pattern. And if you're doing this, if you like this project, you know, like here I just had to create a pattern, but I want my two lines, my two strands, I mean to say, to end up even so that this bar is even. I'm pushing everything down just to see, and it looks like I need one more seed bead here. So I'm gonna just slip off one side, just because I want them to finish up at the same level across from each other. That makes sense. So I'm going to alternate orange and gold all the way up to my spacer bar. And so it's really fun, relaxing stringing project, and it's so awesome to play in a Jesse James bead mix. They're always so full of surprises, and I love this design for a 2-strand bracelet that really almost looks like a single strand, because you can incorporate the larger beads, like get in some really cool beads and get in some of these larger beads into your design, but also use the smaller beads, and it's just really bold and highly textural to go from the cylinders and the squares to the smaller rounds. It's just really I love the way this turned out. And so now I'm going to do the same thing on this side that I did on this side, just create another loop. So I'm going to string these little teardrop beads in the opposite direction that I did on the other end. So the fatter bottom is landing on my spacer bead. And the other thing is, I was going to mix in my metal findings that were left over from the Magical Mystery bead box with these, but I found that these holes were a little bit wider apart than these holes. So if you like this project and you have these, I would stick with those, and if not, in other words, I would choose one or the other. When I started out stringing, I thought that I might be able to use both, because this is so cool strung this way as a 2-hole connector, but it didn't work with the sparkle, so I went with the sparkle. So maybe save you a little time if you're going to attempt this yourself. So I'm just going to bring back in my seed beads here and create another little loopy pattern here to put the closure on. And then I'm going to turn some of these things into dangles and add them into my bracelet. So let me finish stringing this little seed bead end loop, and I'll show you how it's going to get crimped. Okay, so that's how I'm going to finish my stringing, and I'm going to take my number 2 crimp tube and feed that on one side, and then I'm going to take the other side and go in the opposite direction. So like that. So I'm going to pull tight, and so now I have a wire going through the tube in each direction, and that's going to be where I put my closure. So I just did this pattern the same on both sides, and this is going to look like an 11/0 seed bead when it's crimped with the magical crimping plier. So the other thing about this design is that it is going to be a little bit stiffer of a bracelet. It's going to end up being, I am so sorry, I went to my bead society meeting and I have a lot of stuff on my arm today from that outfit, but it's going to be a little bit stiffer of a bracelet than a normal. It's going to be almost bangle-like, even though it's a strung bracelet, and that's okay. I'm going to push everything down. So where we would normally say don't crimp in a straight line and make sure everything is nice and loose, on this design, really the opposite is true. You want no spaces here where you've gone from 2 strands into a bead, separating back out into separate strands, and it looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and get my magical crimping plier in here, and I do have this pulled pretty tight. The magical crimping plier needs a little bit of space, so it's going to push everything out when I crimp. Fit your tool in there, and then when you have it in place where you are not crushing your seed beads, like you really, when you're crimping with this tool, really any crimping plier, and you have seed beads in your design, you just want to be careful that you're not chomping down and breaking them. So I'm going to give this a nice tight pull. I'm going to come down on my mat so before I close down, and so I've taken that number 2 tube, and it looks like a little square with 4 pinched corners, and I'm going to fit this in the opposite direction, again being really careful that I'm not breaking my seed beads when I crimp. It's a little tricky on these loops for sure, but it can totally be done if you just go slowly and take your time. So once I feel like I'm in the center, I'm going to close down in the opposite direction. Okay, I'm just going to go around a few times, opening and closing my tool. And now that number 2 crimp tube looks like an 11/0 seed bead. And then I'm going to come really close and snip my wires. So this is a cool design because you only need one crimp tube for the entire bracelet. And I mean, that is just beautiful. And this has a nice weight to it because of the double strands and the gemstones. Absolutely gorgeous. So it's ready for a clasp. And this is super simple. I'm just going to open a jump ring and add my lobster claw clasp onto this side, right over where we crimped. And then you could either clasp the lobster claw clasp right over the seed beads or add a jump ring. Let me see how easy it is to take on and off. Yeah, I think a jump ring is going to work a little bit better. So I'm just going to put a jump ring here. And so it's a really simple closure. That is so gorgeous. I'm going to go ahead and clasp it, and we're going to make some dangles. Look at this bracelet, you guys. It is absolutely stunning, and I love that this bead mix had a little bit of copper in it. It's just a very delicious, beautiful color combination. The gold, copper, golden, yellow, and orange, and blue, and the gorgeous agate and the crystals. I mean, I want to play with it, but let's finish the bracelet. So I'm going to add one of these tassels, and I'm just going to grab a head pin, I think, and make a little charm out of this boho bead. I decided to make my own head pin, and I just have a little piece of 20 gauge copper wire here from my scrap bag, and I'm going to take my bail making plier, my 6-step bail making plier, and I'm going to make a little coil for the end of this to make a head pin. And so the reason I'm doing that is because the boho beads have a little bit larger hole, and so this acts as a great stopper. But also I do love that the bead mix had a little splash of copper in it, so I'm just going to add in a tiny bit more with this copper wire. So I'm going to make a coil here. I'm going to get it to be kind of substantial because of the bead it's going to go under. That should be good. And so I'm going to take this wire now. I'm going to tighten up with my tool and push my wire kind of over to the middle, and I can take it off now. And now it becomes a head pin when I grab right here and just direction that straight up. And it does need a little bit of straightening. Let me get my nylon jaw pliers, and just, it was out of my scrap bag. I love using my scraps. I had my little bit of leftover beads from summer camp last year. They were perfect for this project. I still have some left over. I find that my Jesse James bead mixes, and really anything that I get from them, they're so generous with their quantities, and I'm still making things long after, you know, I'm done. So I'm just gonna, I just made my own little funky little coil head pin, and I just love adding that into this piece. So and I think let's see if I have a little, I'm gonna add a little gold. I'm going to add a little, top it off with a little gold seed bead. And now I'm just going to put a simple loop in here, just give that a bend, and come here with my round nose pliers. And I start my simple loops the same way that I start my wrapped loops. Get everything straight. So from here you could wrap if you want to, but I don't think it's necessary on this piece. I'm just going to snip my wire right there. Look how cool that is. I love making my own head pins this way. And I'm going to take a couple more of my jump rings and just find some cool places to attach these little dangles. Maybe do one right here in this larger space. I'm going to attach this right here so that it can float over this portion of my bracelet. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, I just love it. And then find a spot for my tassel. So I want to put my jump ring, it wants to go in that loop. Let me open it a little bit wider. So I want to put my jump ring around the circumference, like around the base of my lobster claw clasp, and I don't want to let it go into that ring. And I'm going to close it really well, and I'll show you what that accomplishes. I do this a lot most of the time when I'm attaching a charm, because then this goes around 360 degrees. My charm is never stuck. So on this one, you know, it's going to be inside this loop. So no matter which way you pick this up, these charms won't be stuck. But look at this stunning piece, you guys. I love the way this turned out. It has a nice weight to it. It's a little bit bangle-like, but it still has some movement. It's such a pretty bracelet. I thank you so much for watching. Check the description box for links to Jesse James beads, and the supplies and everything that you need will be there. They have a really wonderful website, and like I said at the beginning, don't forget to check out the Fab Finds section of the Jesse James beads website, because there are some limited edition, really cool little findings and things there. And they don't last long because they're not in huge quantities, but really makes your designs unique and beautiful. I thank you so much for watching. I hope everybody is safe and well and having fun on your beading mats. See you in the next video.